Welcome to the only daily podcast focusing on compliance news of the day. Each morning, start your day with a cup of coffee and Tom Fox, the voice of compliance, to hear about 4 of the top compliance, corruption, or leadership stories you will need to start your day. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.
June 4, 2020, the Bad Actors Edition. And we begin with an article from the New York Times. Former UAW President Gary Jones pleads guilty to embezzling union funds, becoming the highest-ranking union member to admit wrongdoing in a wide-ranging federal investigation that has involved more than a dozen senior officials and at least 3 executives from Fiat Chrysler. Under a cooperation agreement, Jones acknowledged using more than $1 million in union funds for vacation rentals, golf outings, clothing, liquor, and expensive meals. According to prosecutors, he spent $60,000 on cigars and smoking paraphernalia alone. In a hearing, Jones admitted filing expense reports to the UAW that concealed the use of union funds. Next up, Brazil's former chief anti-corruption prosecutor and the face of the country's anti-corruption campaign said that he stepped down because he felt the current Brazilian president, Bolsonaro, had abandoned the fight on corruption that had helped get him elected. Sergio Moro said in an interview with the Wall Street Journal, to fight corruption, you need a very strong program, including in Congress, and he did not see the president supporting those reforms. And by president, I mean President of Brazil, not the corrupt president of America, Donald Trump. Moro, who was lauded as the face of Operation Car Wash that sent many prominent politicians and corporate executives to jail, resigned back in April, accusing the Brazilian president of trying to interfere in criminal investigations. Days before Moro's departure, Bolsonaro had fired his health minister after the two clashed over the handling of the coronavirus pandemic that is now ravaging Brazil. So, sad news, bad news on the fight against corruption from Brazil. Next up, a former University of Miami professor admitted Monday to laundering money on behalf of a Colombian businessman who authorities said organized a corrupt scheme to divert funds from Venezuela. The professor, Bruce Bagley, sparked a slew of headlines as he is a noted expert on crime and specifically financial money laundering in Latin America. So this is reported by Dylan Tokar over at the Wall Street Journal Risk and Compliance Journal. Bagley said he had laundered money for a Colombian businessman in a scheme to divert millions of dollars in Venezuelan monies using an emergency food program. The laundering money would be circled back to Venezuelan President Maduro. The professor, who had gone from literally writing the book on drug trafficking and organized crime in Latin America to committing crimes. And finally, we have the story of Pilgrim's Pride. Pilgrim's Pride is the country's largest chicken producer, and this chief executive was indicted yesterday, or rather 2 days ago, on price fixing, along with 3 other current or former executives at the company. The indictment alleges that senior executives at Pilgrim's Pride and Claxton Poultry Farms in Georgia fixed price and rigged bids from 2012 to 2017. Interestingly, this is Chick-fil-A's largest supplier, so you wonder how what the pricing costs went to Chick-fil-A were based upon this price fixing. You rarely get a CEO involved in price fixing allegations, so it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out and whether the Department of Justice can get a guilty plea or if they have to go to trial, a guilty verdict going forward. I hope you will check out this month's 31 Days to a More Effective Compliance program, where I take up internal reporting and investigations. And on the Compliance Life, I begin a 4-part series with Ryan Robles on his journey to the CCO chair.